Hey, welcome everyone. I'm Lindsay Walden, supervisor at OPSC for the California Preschool Transitional Kindergarten and Full Day Kindergarten Facilities Grant Program, and I will be facilitating the webinar this morning. So with me today are the Full Day Kindergarten project managers, Solashna Hannon and Frank Schneegus, as well as Brian Lepask, Chief of Program Services, and Tracy Sharp, Operations Manager and Program Services. Also here today is the financial hardship team who will be available to answer any questions at the end, as well as Brian Boyd from the California Department of Education, who will also be available to answer those questions as we go. So today we will be discussing the California Preschool Transitional Kindergarten Full Day Kindergarten Facilities Grant Program, or as we often call it, the FDK program for short. And so with the recent SAB approval of a fifth filing round, which we're all very excited for, we wanted to give an overview of the program for new applicants, returning applicants, as it's been a little while since we have had a round. So with that, I will turn it over to Solashna and Frank, who will be presenting today. I'll go ahead and share their PowerPoint. Mm. So we'll turn it over to Solashna, who will start us off.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending and welcome to the Office of Public School Construction's presentation on the California Preschool Transitional Kindergarten and Full Day Kindergarten Facilities Grant Program. As mentioned before, my name is Solashna Hannon and I am one of the project managers for the program. I am accompanied with Frank Schneegus, who is also a project manager for the program and will be co-presenting with me today. During our presentation today, we will outline the program's key aspects, including eligibility criteria and funding opportunities. We will also detail the application process, clarify how funding order is determined, and explain the requirements for fund release and program reporting. All right, we will begin with the program overview. On June 27, 2018, the governor signed Assembly Bill 1808, which established the Full Day Kindergarten Facilities Grant Program, aiming to support the development and enhancement of facilities for full day kindergarten programs. AB 1808 allocated $100 million from the general fund to the State Allocation Board for this program. This funding was distributed during the initial 2 rounds in 2019. Assembly Bill 130, signed by the governor in July 2021, allocated $490 million in additional funds and expanded eligibility to include California preschool and transitional kindergartners. An additional $100 million was allocated to the program with the passing of Assembly Bill 181 in June 2022, extending eligibility to include community colleges that run preschool programs on behalf of or in place of a school district or county office of education. The program offers one-time grants to increase the availability of full-day classrooms through the construction of new school facilities or the retrofitting of existing ones. Additionally, funding will be allocated to schools that are either launching or expanding preschool or transitional kindergarten programs. It is essential to understand that the program provides funding exclusively for students currently enrolled in full-day kindergarten rather than those who will be enrolled in the future. The board apportioned the additional $590 million in funds for the expanded program in 2 funding rounds. Apportionment for applications received during the 3rd funding round took place in September, October, and November of 2022. And the 4th funding round applications were apportioned in September, October, and December of 2023, as well as in June of 2024. As of January 28, 2026, $31.6 million has been returned to the program as a result of reductions to project scope or full project rescissions. In light of this, the SAB approved a 5th funding round during the January 2026 SAB meeting to allocate the remaining funds of the program. With the newly available funds, the board approved a 5th filing round to allocate the remaining $31.6 million. The 5th filing round dates will be April 1st to April 30th of 2026. Since the program is using funding rounds, the date that the application was received by OPSC will not determine funding order. Applications with district representative signatures and all necessary documents must be received by OPSC by the last date of the filing round. All funds available to the program from the 2021-2022 and 2022-2023 Budget Act must be encumbered by the board by June 30th, 2028, and any funds not encumbered by June 30th of 2028 shall be returned to the general fund. Moving on to program funding. Program funding is provided as grants and does require a local/district matching share based on project type, which we will go over in the next slide. This is similar to the school facility program, which provides funding for modernization of existing facilities to extend the useful life of the facilities and enhance the learning environment, as well as new construction funding, which is provided primarily to fund the construction of new classroom facilities to accommodate growing enrollment. Program-based grant amounts are determined based on the eligible project scope and are spelled out in statute. This program uses the most current SFP K-6 new construction and modernization pupil grant amounts to calculate the amounts for this program's new construction and retrofit grant amounts, and will be adjusted concurrently with the SFP Construction Cost Index. For full-day kindergarten applicants, district must not have any contracts awarded for full-day kindergarten projects prior to July 1st, 2018. For preschool and transitional kindergarten applicants, districts must not have any contracts awarded for the project prior to July 1st of 2021. And for community colleges applying for preschool pupils, must not have awarded any contracts for the project prior to July 1st of 2022. Moving on to matching share requirements. The matching share requirements for state and district funding is determined by the type of project. Program grants will be allocated as follows, excluding school districts that qualify for financial hardship funding. For projects converting from part-day to full-day kindergarten programs, as well as for new or existing preschool or transitional kindergarten programs, funding will be allocated on a 75-25 basis between state and local sources for both new construction and retrofit projects. For non-conversion projects, applicants will receive grants based on a 50-50 state and local share for new construction projects and a 60-40 state and local share for retrofit projects. Next, who can apply? For funding requested for full-day kindergarten or transitional kindergarten, eligible school districts must meet the following criteria. The district must currently lack the facilities to adequately provide full-day instruction for existing pupils at the project school site. Districts can only use program funds to add or expand a transitional kindergarten program or adequately house a full-day kindergarten program. School district must hold title to the real property where the facilities will be located. Therefore, projects located on leased lands are not eligible for funding through this program. Statute only allows school districts to apply for funding for full-day kindergarten and transitional kindergarten classrooms. However, school districts can provide kindergarten instruction, school districts that provide kindergarten instruction may apply on behalf of a charter school that is located in district-owned facilities. Continuing on with who can apply. In order to be eligible to apply for funding for preschool facilities, school districts, county office of education, and community colleges must meet the following requirements. The project school site must currently lack the facilities to adequately provide full-day instruction for pupils. For preschool specific funding, school districts, county offices of education, and community colleges may apply. School districts must hold title to the real property where the facilities will be located. Therefore, projects located on leased land are not eligible for program funding. Right, moving on to classroom capacity. A district will be considered lacking full-day facilities if the site's current enrollment data exceeds the existing kindergarten compliant classroom capacity prior to the construction of the project. Compliant classrooms refers to classrooms that meet Title V requirement at the time of construction. Classrooms constructed as kindergarten classrooms or altered to house kindergarten students, regardless of current use, will be included when determining existing kindergarten classroom capacity. For example, if a school has 40 kindergarten pupils that are not housed in kindergarten facilities, They are eligible for 2 classrooms, which equates to 50 pupil grants. In other words, grants are based on increments of 25 pupils. Next is determining capacity needs. When a site is adding or expanding its program, it can evaluate classroom needs by calculating the average enrollment in the upper grade levels, particularly in first, second, and third grades. For preschool and transitional kindergarten projects, OPSC will rely on the enrollment data from the current school year's first, second, and third grades at the specific school where the new facilities will be located. This method will provide a reliable estimate for the previous year's enrollment figures. All current first graders were assumed eligible for transitional kindergarten 2 years prior, second graders 3 years prior, and third graders 4 years prior, with the same relation to preschool pupils 1 year before transitional kindergarten age. On the other hand, school districts can use 3 years of actual transitional kindergarten enrollment in lieu of higher grade levels if the school site already offers TK instruction. Here's an example of an eligible full-day project. Before the project, this school site had 2 part-day kindergarten classrooms and 1 part-day transitional kindergarten classroom with 50 pupils in each classroom, 25 in the morning and 25 in the afternoon. In order to provide full-day instruction for all pupils, the school district would need 3 new classrooms. The need for 3 classrooms translates to being eligible for 75 pupil grant. After the project, the school would end up with 6 total full-day classrooms with 25 pupils in each. Moving on to types of grants. The 2 main grants offered in this program are new construction and retrofit grants. New construction grants seek to increase the number of full-day classrooms by the addition of classrooms to an existing school site. Retrofit grants seek to increase the number of full-day classrooms by retrofitting an existing facility that is not a kindergarten classroom. For transitional kindergarten and full-day kindergarten, for both types of grants, districts will need to certify if there are any classrooms on the site that met kindergarten Title V design requirements when they were built or were later retrofitted to do so. For preschool, districts will need to certify if there are any classrooms that met preschool requirements when they were built or later retrofitted to meet the requirement. Part of the verification process will include consulting with the California Department of Education, CDE, to determine if an application should be limited to a retrofit project. Consultation with CDE will be conducted on a project-by-project basis. OPSC will use enrollment data and site maps to verify a school site's overall need for funding based off enrollment patterns and capacity at the site. The program prohibits the construction of new portable classrooms, but permits the retrofitting of existing ones. For retrofit funding of a portable classroom requires that at least one wall of the portable remains intact. Continuing on with types of grants. Districts may apply for funding with or without an advance release of funds. Projects do not need to be planned or construction ready. Districts may apply with request of advance funding if the project is merely an idea and moving forward is dependent on state funding. New construction or retrofit grant requests without an advance release of funds are for districts that have all of the required supporting documentation, including DSA plan approval and CDE final plan approval. New construction or retrofit grant requests with an advance fund release are for districts that have none or only a portion of the required supporting documentation. Districts doing new construction projects can request an advance funding for design costs and/or site acquisition costs. Advance fund release for design costs will be 40% of the new construction base grant. Districts doing retrofit projects can request an advance release of funding for design costs. That will be 25% of the retrofit base grant. Districts do not need to be a financial hardship district to receive an advance. Base grants for both new construction and retrofit projects can be increased by additional grants. For new construction projects, districts may also request additional grant funding for the following. Site acquisition cost. For this grant, the site must be adjacent to the existing facility. Funding will be provided respective to the land required for the proposed project. hazardous waste removal, automatic fire detection and alarm system, automatic fire sprinkler system. For this grant, if the district initially requested the grant, but the automatic sprinkler system was not included in the DSA approved plans, the application must return to the SAB for approval to rescind the sprinkler grant funding. Site development. With this grant, the new construction base grant will be increased by 35%. Multi-level classroom construction, and project assistance. This is a grant for school districts that have an enrollment of 2,500 or less. For retrofit projects, districts may also request additional funding for the following: automatic fire detection and alarm system, site development. With this grant, the retrofit base grant will be increased by 35%. Utility costs necessary for the retrofit of 50 years or older permanent buildings. With this grant, the retrofit base grant will be increased by 15%. And project assistance. Now we will go over the application process. We will begin with what makes a complete application. All school districts requesting program funding must submit all of the following. First is a complete and valid application for funding, Form SAB 7001. Second is a detailed site map that identifies and labels the following: current use of all facilities on the school site, all classrooms built or retrofitted as kindergarten or preschool classrooms, regardless of current use, and any program eligible classrooms that will not provide full day instruction at the completion of the project. Third is the CalPAS documentation verifying the district's overall enrollment at the project site. Districts will need to provide current enrollment at the time of application submittal, as well as the 3 prior enrollment years. Program staff has found CalPADS 1.4 and 5.1, which we will talk about in the next slide, most helpful for districts, but we do welcome any other CalPADS reports. Keep in mind that if the district is submitting on OPSC Online, then the submittal of a PDF version of the Form SAB 7001 won't be required, but the additional documents will need to be uploaded and submitted through OPSC Online. So CalPADS groups full-day kindergarten and transitional kindergarten students into one category of kindergarten pupils. When transcribing data from the CalPADS reports to the 7001 application, manual calculations must be made in order to determine full-day kindergarten pupils. Most districts submit CalPADS 1.4 and 5.1 reports to substantiate their enrollment data. 1.4 displays the enrollment of all grade levels, and 5.1 displays the enrollment of various subgroups, including transitional kindergartners. To obtain an accurate enrollment count of full-day kindergartners, the district must subtract the number of recorded TK students on the 5.1 report from the recorded number of kindergarten students on the 1.4 report. This adjusted total must be recorded in the enrollment data table on the Form 7001 application. Continuing on with what makes a complete application. All school districts requesting program funding must also submit the following: a detailed description of the proposed project, including the following information: explaining the district's proposed scope of work in the project plans, how many classrooms were kindergarten compliant at the time of construction, where kindergartners are currently being housed at the site, explain the district's planned kindergarten classroom usage at the completion of the project. Keep in mind that districts may still offer part-day kindergarten instruction, but the classrooms used for part-day would need to be identified on the site map and would not be eligible for program funding. And lastly, a clear description of the current kindergarten program, specifying if the site is currently offering a full-day program and when it began. If a full-day program is not currently offered, it should be implemented by the time the project is complete. And the last required item is a school board resolution that approves full-day kindergarten instruction at the project site, which can be submitted with the initial Form 7001 or included with the Form 7003 final expenditure report. School districts looking to apply for transitional kindergarten or preschool programs must submit a school board resolution that approves full-day instruction at the site along with their initial Form 7001. All right, moving on to what makes a complete preschool application. All school districts requesting program funding for preschool classrooms must submit all the items we discussed in the previous 3 slides and the following items. First, the district or COE must submit its county's most recent child care needs assessment conducted by its regional local planning council for preschool age children. Second is a current or future contract with the CDE to operate a preschool program. If a district did not submit a CDE preschool program to OPSC for operating a preschool program during the initial 7001 submission, it is necessary to include the CDE preschool contract with the 7003 final expenditure report submission. And lastly, the enrollment data report for preschool pupils if the project site is currently offering preschool instruction. You can find the preschool enrollment data using the Child Development Management Information System, also known as the CDMIS, on CDE's website. Reminder, when school districts are seeking program funds for California state preschool facilities, it's important to remember that the minimum size requirement for these buildings is 1,350 square feet. Districts applying for a new construction grant without an advance release of funds must submit the following with their Form 7001. DSA application number, DSA final plan approval letter date, CDE final plan approval letter date, access to plans and specifications for the DSA approved project, CDE final site approval letter for projects including site acquisition, the Phase 1 financial hardship checklist if requesting financial hardship assistance, and the appraisal of property that must be dated within 6 months prior to purchase of the site for site acquisition projects only. Districts applying for a new construction grant with an advanced release of funds for design and/or site must submit the following with their 7001. CDE contingent site approval letter for site acquisition projects only, and the preliminary appraisal of property that must be dated within 6 months prior to the receipt date of the Form SAB 7001, also for site acquisition projects only. Districts applying for a retrofit grant without an advance release of funds must submit the following with their 7001. DSA application number, the DSA plan approval letter date, CDE final plan approval letter date, access to the plans and specifications for the DSA approved project, Phase 1 financial hardship checklist if requesting financial hardship assistance, and a site map identifying facilities to be retrofitted in the project and the age of the buildings on the site map if the district is requesting the 50-year-old utilities grant. The effective date for determining the age of a building is 1 year from the DSA approved date, DSA approval date. Districts applying for a retrofit grant with an advance release of funds for design costs must submit the following with their 7001. A site map identifying facilities to be retrofitted in the project and the age of the buildings on a site map if the district is requesting the 50-year-old utilities grant. Next, we will discuss the eligibility criteria for financial hardship assistance funding. School districts that are unable to provide a portion or all of their matching share can request for financial hardship assistance, provided that they meet at least one of the qualifying criteria for the Phase 1 review. Additionally, applicants must submit a valid and completed Phase 1 checklist along with the initial 7001 application for funding to be considered a complete and approved application submittal. It is important to note that this checklist is a new requirement for the 5th funding round and was not necessary in the previous 4 rounds. So again, districts must demonstrate that they are financially unable to provide a portion or all of the required matching funds for an eligible program project. Additionally, they should be currently charging the maximum allowable developer fee and fulfill at least one of the following specified conditions. A current bonded debt that is 60% or more of district debt capacity, had a successful registered voter bond election for at least the maximum amount allowed under Proposition 39 within the previous 2 years from the date of request for financial hardship status, a debt capacity of $15 million or less at the time of the request for financial hardship status, or it is a county superintendent of schools. If you want more specific information about financial hardship, we have included an OPSC contact at the end of the presentation that can answer more detailed questions. Here's a brief overview of the financial hardship process of the program if the district meets the qualifying criteria in the previous slide. The financial hardship process is similar to SFP and utilizes the same documents and forms. So first, the district submits a valid and complete Phase 1 financial hardship checklist and all required supporting documentation with the Form 7001 to be considered an approved application. Next, OPSC will notify the district when the 7001 is scheduled to be processed, usually with a 15-day letter. Next, districts are required to submit financial hardship documents within a 30-day time frame. Due to the fast-paced nature of this program, failure to provide these documents within the specified period may result in the district being ineligible for financial hardship assistance and the related priority points. And lastly, financial hardship approval and funding application will be processed concurrently. Reminder, if the district is planning to use bridge financing, please contact OPSC prior to the beginning of the process. Additionally, the district does not have to have an approved financial hardship review prior to submitting an application during the filing round period. When an application is received requesting financial hardship, the program team will notify the financial hardship team. Next, we will discuss the funding order. Preference points will be used to determine the order in which school districts are funded. Preference points will be given to each approved application up to a maximum of 80 points as follows. 40 points will be given if a school district demonstrates it meets the requirements for a financial hardship grant. Again, the applicant will need to submit a completed Phase 1 financial hardship checklist with the initial 7001 application submittal if requesting for financial hardship assistance. Then, up to an additional 40 points will be given based on the district percentage of pupils who are eligible for the free and reduced price school meals. To the right is the FRPM percentage sliding scale. The percentage will be based on district data for the current enrollment year and not site-specific data. All right, now that I've wrapped up my part of the presentation, I'll hand it over to Frank to take us through the rest.
Thanks, Lashna. Again, my name is Frank Schneegus, and I'm a project manager for the California Preschool, Transitional Kindergarten, and Full Day Kindergarten Facilities Grant Program. I'll be going over the program's fund release process and the reporting requirements. All right. So all districts that receive an apportionment with or without a design advance must submit for fund release within 18 months of the date of their apportionment. This includes a valid 7002 fund release authorization and all the required approvals and documents, such as CDE plan approval, DSA plan approval, and signed construction contracts. Districts can submit for fund release as soon as they are ready, but must do so within 18 months of their apportionment. Prior to the release of any funds, including design advance funds, districts must submit a grant agreement that is signed by an authorized district representative. OPSC will prepare the grant agreement and send it over to the district for signature. Districts that receive a design advance do not need to submit a 7002 to receive the design advance funds, but will still need to submit a 7002 with all the approvals for the release of the remainder of their full apportionment. If a 7002 is not submitted within 18 months of their apportionment, the apportionment may be rescinded without State Allocation Board approval. However, districts can request extensions to their fund release deadline if they're unable to submit for fund release within 18 months of their apportionment. I'll talk a bit more about these extensions on the next slide. Forms may be submitted on OPSC Online or emailed to the OPSC Application Review Team, but beginning January 1st, 2027, they should all be submitted through OPSC Online. Please be sure to review the general information and specific instruction sections on Form 7001 application for funding and 7002 fund release authorization, as detailed information is outlined in those forms as well. Both forms can be found on our website. I'd like to note that because this program is funded by money from the general fund, districts will not have to participate in the priority funding process to access funds from this program. If a school district cannot submit the necessary approvals and complete a 7002 within 18 months of their apportionment date, they may request an extension. Given the timing constraints of this funding round, extensions will be limited to a maximum of 12 months, which is 6 months less than what has been previously allowed. This change is to allow time for OPSC staff to prepare funding adjustments if any projects reduce the scope of their apportionment. Districts can request a fund release extension by submitting a letter with evidence satisfactory to OPSC of circumstances beyond the district's control that prevents them from submitting the required approvals in a complete 7002 within 18 months of their apportionment. Although extensions would be limited to a maximum of 12 months, districts will still have the full 3 years from their apportionment date to complete the project. So here is a proposed timeline of this 5th round. OPSC will have OPSC has proposed that apportionments go to the October 2026 State Allocation Board meeting for approval. Districts will have 18 months after their apportionment to request full fund release. If apportionments are approved in October, the fund release deadline would be in April of 2028. The maximum extension for fund release will be for an additional 12 months, which would make the maximum proposed deadline for fund release April 2029. Districts will still have the full 3 years to complete the project and submit a completed Form 7003 expenditure report by October 2029. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, the deadline to allocate program funds is June 30th, 2028. If any additional funds come back to the program after the initial 5th funding round apportionments, the State Allocation Board may approve additional apportionments before June 30th, 2028. Depending on the timing of their apportionment, districts that receive an apportionment after the October 2026 State Allocation Board meeting may not be able to request a full 12-month extension. This is because May 1st, 2030 will be the final deadline for districts to submit for fund release. This is to allow processing time before the program's June 30th, 2030 deadline to distribute all the funds. So this table has some of the key dates I've been talking about. The final date for apportionment of any remaining funds will be June 30th, 2028. The districts that receive an apportionment around that time will have 18 months after apportionment to request full fund release. In this example, that deadline would be December 30th, 2029. The maximum possible extension for fund release would be May 1st, 2030, which would be slightly less than the 12 months. OPSC will need to complete any remaining fund release requests before June 30th, 2030. Districts will still have the full 3 years to complete the project and submit a 7003 expenditure report by June 30th, 2031. Here is a simple sample program timeline for projects without advance release of funds. First, a school district submits a 7001 application for funding. If OPSC approves the application and the State Allocation Board approves an apportionment, the district will have 18 months to submit a 7002 and the required documents for fund release. OPSC will provide the corresponding grant agreement to be signed by an authorized district representative. Once the fund release documents have been approved by OPSC and the grant agreement has been signed, all funds will be released to the school district. 3 years from the apportionment, the district will submit a 7003 and a detailed listing of project expenditures. Here is another sample program timeline, but for a project that does receive design advance funding. This example also includes site acquisition. Again, the district submits a 7001 application for funding. And again, if the application is approved by OPSC, it will go to the State Allocation Board for an apportionment. However, after receiving an apportionment, districts with an advance for project design will be able to receive the design advance before the full fund release. OPSC will prepare a grant agreement for the corresponding advance amount and will release the advance funds after the execution of the grant agreement. A 7002 is not required to receive design advance funds. Districts will still have 18 months from the date of their apportionment to submit the 7002 for full fund release and 3 years from their apportionment to submit a 7003 expenditure report. If the district has site acquisition, the district can submit one 7002 for site acquisition and a second 7002 for the full fund release, or just one 7002 for both site acquisition and full fund release. All districts that receive program funding must submit a valid expenditure report, Form 7003, and a detailed listing of project expenditures, DLOP for short, at the completion of the project. Projects will be considered complete either when the notice of completion for the project has been filed or 3 years from the date of the apportionment. Districts that have project savings will need to submit two 7003s. The first one, the final expenditure report, must be submitted 3 years from the apportionment date. The second one, the final savings report, must be submitted 1 year after the completion of the project, which would likely also be a year after the submittal of the first 7003. All projects will be subject to a local audit to ensure that all funds were used in accordance with the Ed Code and program regulations. All right, here are a few helpful links. The first is to the webpage for this program. All the forms we've talked about in our presentation, 7001, 702, and 703, are available on our website. Additionally, here's a link to OPSC Online. If you have any questions at any point in your application process, fund release process, or later on, here are some program contacts you can reach out to. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you, Sasha and Frank. We had one question that came into the chat from Brenda Garcia about is a modular building considered a portable? So no, modular buildings are not considered portable. So specifically with the full day kindergarten or the FDK program, we have a specific portable definition from statute that describes what a portable is, and most modulars do not meet that. We have found in the past that often districts are purchasing modulars for this program. Any other questions that we can answer? So as Frank said too, if at any point in reviewing this or getting ready to submit the applications during the funding round in April, if anything pops up, you are welcome to contact us at any point. We're happy to meet or answer any questions on the fly. We're always available. I will throw up the contact information here at any point. We do have a full day kindergarten distribution email. So if you have any questions, you're not quite sure who to send to, you can send an email to that email address, and it reaches quite a few people who can answer your question. Let's see. Oh, we do have one more question from Greg. If there is still a limit of 4 preschool classrooms and 4 TK classrooms, yes. The program itself has, the regulations have not changed. The only thing that did change with the 5th filing round was the requirement for financial hardship phase 1 checklist being submitted with the initial 7001 during the application funding round, as well as the timelines for extension and anything funded after the October 2026 state allocation board. Okay, we have one question from Heather. So how will it be determined who is selected? Is there a point system? Will a district that has already received funding in a previous round be disqualified? So we do have a priority point system that is based on financial hardship eligibility and the district's free and reduced price meal percentage. So we base it off of those priority points. So it is in the presentation, I can send it back out. But essentially how that works is if a district qualifies for financial hardship, they receive 40 points. And then based on the sliding scale and the district's FRPM percentage, there is an up to an additional 40 points. And we go down the list starting essentially at 80 points. And we only, at this, we start with the first priority project for each school district. So no matter how many applications are submitted for a district, we start with priority 1 and go down the list. And the way that works is we would fund the first priority project for each district before going back to their second priority. Let's see, I think there's a few more questions. So yes, any district can apply for, so sorry, excuse me, the question is from Michael Healy. So can any district apply for this funding in April, or did we need to submit an application previously? Nope. Any district is an open round may apply. Every round is independent of each other. So they can apply starting April 1st through April 30th. So any applications submitted during that time will be logged and hopefully processed. I'll make sure. Oh, sorry, I didn't finish answering Heather's question. A district who has received funding in previous rounds will not be disqualified. If they still have an eligible project and a need for classrooms, those classrooms can be applied for. Mm. So Greg's question, we have another one, is if a district receives the maximum of 4 preschool and TK in a previous funding round, are they now allowed to apply for 4 additional preschool and TK classrooms? If there is a need at the site for additional classrooms, yes, we can fund those. It would go through the same process as every other district. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Again, feel free to reach out with anything that does pop up. And this will be posted to the webpage as well. So this will be easily referenced back for any questions, as well as on our YouTube channel as well. I'm not seeing anything else. So with that, we will end the presentation today. Thank you everyone for joining. We're happy to see a 5th round.